All right, so here we're looking at the setup for stage one, which is the technical warm-up, and this will also cover stage two, which is the tactical warm-up. So we have a grid space here of 40 by 80, and at Discovery, there is the possibility to have an 80 by 80 grid for each age group. So what we're seeing here is a 40 by 80 grid, and we're just using 1/2 here. So I've got a 12 by 6 pop-up goal here. I have training poles to mark the space for the 40 yards, and then here we have the 80 yards that go that way. Now in this half of the 40 by 80, we have 4 areas which are for the technical warm-up, and there are yellow cones. This is roughly 10 by 10 yards. Here we have red cones. Over here we have pink cones, and here we have green cones. On this particular pitch, there is about 5 yards in between each grouping. You can add as much as 10. Depending on numbers, you might want to make your areas 15 by 15 to accompany or to accommodate more players. So this is where each coach will need to adjust based on the age group and the number of players that we have. So here is a document using Digital Coaching Center, and this document shows the setup of the grids. So again, we see that we have the 80 by 80 grid space, and I've broken this space up into two 80 by 40 yards. And in this 80 by 40 yard space, I have two 12 by 6 goals at either end, and then I have 2 different areas that are possible here. So stage 1 and stage 2, as well as the first part of stage 3, can really be fit nicely in this grid. So again, depending on numbers, then there's a lot that we can do here. And we can even use all 4 areas if we break them up like this. So in this, I just showed the actual field space with the cones and the colors. In this area, and I had the 5 yards by 5 yards in between the 4 different grid areas, then coaches or evaluators can stand to give instructions. And for the stage 2, which is the tactical 3v1, 4v1, 5v2, then all of the balls can be in here. So when there's a wild ball that gets lost, then instead of players running all out here, they can simply come back to the center and collect a ball and keep going quickly and efficiently. Now up here I have orange cones that are all placed. Well, what I did for the training and to make things as quick and efficient as possible, I simply put my colored cones on top of the orange cones, and then in between, when I finished with this activity for stage 1 and stage 2, I would send the players to go get a drink of water, and then I could pick up the cones and we were set, and it was quick. So here we see players. In this case, we had about 12 or 13 players that were videotaping here, but they are working within the 10 by 10 grids, and you see us as evaluators or coaches standing in the center. So in this technical warm-up, players have the ball, and on coach's command, they have the direction to do the Cruyff, Brazilian toe taps, pull back, juggle, any number of things, whatever the coach decides that they want to see the players demonstrate. And then, as the players move from grid to grid, they leave their balls and they do a FIFA-like warm-up, hip out, hip in, um, karaoke, walking lunges, Frankensteins, side shuffles, um, all of those things that the coaches are calling out for the players to do as they warm up. So again, they leave their ball. In the case of unbalanced numbers, then the players can move to the next grid and go ahead and kick their ball back, or in this case, I have the player who just went ahead and kicked her ball forward. We see this one right here who did that. Okay. All right, so we've shifted. I had the players go get a sip of water and then come back. We put all of the balls into the center of the area, and again where the evaluators are standing. And now in each of the grids I have 2v1, or in the far grid here we have a 3v1. So again, we can adjust this based on numbers, and for a prescribed period of time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever the coach is doing and the amount of time that we have, then we have players engaging in the 2v1 tactical warm-up, and we're looking for their ability to keep possession, to move off the ball, their communication, any number of things. So we'll go ahead and watch this go.
So everybody has the ball?
All right, so players are starting with the ball and giving the command. Players have been instructed that in the event that a ball goes wild, that they go ahead and they come back to the center to pick that ball up. So I'm making sure that the balls are positioned in such a way that the players are able to come and grab the balls, and that we as evaluators aren't tripping over the balls there in the center. Right, and then the play starts, and evaluators are able to turn and see players, ideally being able to see numbers, and rotating players through the position of defender and attacker. All right. All right, and so we continue to watch the players in this setup, and then see how very quickly we simply have players who are the defenders take off that 1 penny and hand it to players who are the attackers, and again, quick, efficient, maximizing the time that we have, and then we can quickly start the play again. Right, so this next piece here of the video is where we are showing the 1v1. It's the first phase of Station 3, where we're doing 1v1 continuous defend and attack. So as we can see here, the grid, the disc cones are now all orange. I simply removed the top cone and had these down, so we had roughly a 24 by 12 space. Again, each coach can adjust that based on their numbers, and the players now have pennies. So I have 12 players here. I actually have 13 players, so I'm going to demonstrate how do you use this 1v1 activity with a neutral player so that we don't have players standing around. So in this case, we have reds here who are on the outside. We have who are target players, and they have a player on the inside. We have yellow players who are our neutral players, and then we have blue players, and one on the inside and one who is a target player. So the task here of the two that are battling in the center is to win the ball and then pass to their target player. So in this case, this red, if she wins a ball, she's going to get it here for a point red, but then this red will send it back to the blue. Now in this first screen, we also see that we have a neutral player because we have unbalanced numbers. The neutral player can receive the ball from the player, here's the target player, but they cannot pass the ball. So it turns into a 2v1 situation inside on several occasions, and again, as evaluators, we get to see the player's abilities to defend, to attack, to move on the ball, off the ball, wall passes, and so on. So we'll watch this get going. All right, play starts from, one side. In this case, we saw it start from the red target. The neutral players are instructed to make sure they're moving side to side, so they're providing a good pass, a good passing option. Can be a little tricky, so if you have the opportunity to create more space for the two different zones, then good idea. And once again, we have space inside for the evaluators to be able to turn and look at either grid. Also, evaluators can stop balls from going into other spaces. All right. Now looking at this from our session plan, or our graphic here, then this area is the 1v1, 2v2 that we just saw demonstrated. Again, these orange disc cones were underneath the colored cones, so when I sent the players off to get a sip of water, then I simply pulled up all of the colored cones, leaving the orange disc cones underneath, and the space was already marked. So now we see where the players have finished their first round. 2 minutes is really good to see the players' physical ability, their conditioning ability as well, how quickly they can go, how long they can go, how hard they can go. And then it's rather simple to switch players out so that everybody has a turn as a target player, as a player on the inside, and as a player in the neutral position. With the neutral position on the outside. What will be tricky with the grid that's closest to us is how you manage that neutral player. So that's going to really be up to coach's discretion to determine how they want to switch that neutral player in, or if that neutral player is one that you know is returning from your team, then you might just keep them in that position so that you can see the other players and assess or evaluate them. Really some coach freedom in that case. So this final video we're going to see as an illustration is the continuous defend and attack, and I have this set up over on this side. So in our illustration, we actually went with a 40 by 60 grid space because we had only 13 players, so it became too large for that number of players. They didn't get enough of a rest in between. And these areas can quickly become the space for small-sided scrimmages of 7v7, 8v8, or 9v9. So what we're going to see is a continuous defending and attacking with unbalanced numbers. So as you watch, you'll see that we start with a number of players on one side. All the balls are with the players, either on this side or this side. Again, both sides have a good supply of balls, and so the one side will deliver a ball and the coach calls out a number and then calls out a number from the other side, and it goes back and forth. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so we have 6 red on this side. We have a player getting ready to deliver the ball, and then I've called out 3 on this side and I believe 2 on the other side, so we'll see what happens. So there goes the ball. These players immediately go to attack, and then we have the 2 players attempting to work together. Bad pass, slow reaction. Now we have a high line of confrontation for the red. So called 2, it's a 2v3 situation. See how they work together, how they defend, how they then quickly transition from defense to offense, how they use their pass back players, the accuracy of their passes. One key is to make sure that the team that's exiting the pitch gets out of the way rather quickly. All right, here we have a high line of confrontation from red. They've got to quickly go back into defense and work together, take advantage of opportunities. Now I like this blue player in the top right. She really immediately understands her role is that she loses possession of the ball and she has to apply immediate pressure. And then we see these 2 players, the blue and the red. The blue player does not let up with pressure, wins the ball back, and then manages to get a score. So this is basically our setup. From here, we can finish the tryout session with a small-sided scrimmage, 7v7, 8v8, 9v9, depending on numbers. And with the setup that we have at Discovery, at least, we have an 80 by 80 space, so we can run 2 of these grids simultaneously. What will be needed are obviously plenty of colored pennies, plenty of colored disc cones. Training poles are really good, and then the 12 by 6 pop-up goals.